Konnichiwa friends, I am SekaixArts and Animation, and today I'm going to be doing the first video in a series I'm going to call What If, where I imagine random things as humans or humanoid characters. So today we are imagining what if elements on the periodic table were characters. Now there are a lot of elements, so this will end up being a multi-part video. First up here is hydrogen. I decided to go down the periodic table in order so I wouldn't forget any or do any twice on accident. I really wanted to do some research, and by research I mean the first couple results on Google. I always know a few things about my characters before I design them, and that helps me give them more character, so I decided to learn a few things about hydrogen so I could design her more properly. Now, fair warning, hydrogen gave me a strange amount of trouble, but well, you'll see how it plays out. Hydrogen is one of, if not the smallest element, so to incorporate that, I decided to make her a child. In addition, hydrogen is in a lot of stars, including the sun, so I gave her some stars floating around her. Hydrogen's atomic number is 1, meaning that it has 1 proton and 1 electron, and I tried to reflect that in how many stars and the shapes of them she had. I know that as this goes on, there will be way too many protons and electrons to do this with every character, but I thought at least at the beginning that it might be fun. I realized in editing that I accidentally gave her 2 protons and 2 electrons. That's incorrect, she should have 1 of each. Hydrogen is also the simplest atom, so I decided to give her plain clothes. This is where I ran into the bulk of my issues. Hydrogen was discovered by British scientist Henry Cavendish in 1766. So at first I thought I'd make her look like a little girl would have in the late 1700s. However, I soon realized that most of the elements were discovered in around the same time period, and I thought it'd be boring if they all looked like 1700s English men and women. So I thought maybe I would lean more into hydro, meaning water, so I put all sorts of water droplet shaped motifs like crystals and skirt layers on her, until I remembered that I wanted to give her a more plain design to represent hydrogen being a simple atom. So again, I scrapped that design and gave her a loose hanging dress with some water droplet shaped pieces on the bottom and called it a day. I also referenced hydro meaning water by giving her hair that looked as if it was made of liquid. Hydrogen is a colorless atom, so I decided to color the palette fairly monotone with just some blues and grays. Hydrogen is also very reactive, but not necessarily that electronegative, so I didn't picture her as a very outgoing character. Instead, I wanted her to look friendly and inviting, but also shy and more reserved, like she would make a good friend, but someone else would have initiated that friendship. Hydrogen is also very flammable, so in some places I set her on fire, not like she's in pain on fire, but rather that the fire is a part of her. think she ended up pretty cute. There are certain things that I think I could have done better or differently, but overall I think I did pretty well, especially for the amount of trouble that hydrogen gave me. I honestly didn't expect it to be so complicated, but you know, it's the ones you don't expect that get you. Next up is helium. With this one, I am really glad that I did the research. The first thing I thought of with helium was balloons, which made me think of a more excited character. However, after doing the research, I learned that helium is actually the most unreactive element, so I went with making her look more calm instead. But I do still think that balloons are an important part of helium, so I gave her 4 balloons that represent her 2 protons and 2 electrons. Helium is also the second lightest element and is a gas at STP, standard temperature and pressure, so I wanted to make this character be really floaty. Helium is also the second most abundant element in the universe, so I made sure that she took up most of the canvas. Helium also has a really low boiling point, so I imagined her as a character who gets hot really easily, so I put her in summer clothing. I mentioned with hydrogen that I didn't want to put them all in clothes related to their time period in which they were discovered, but I did end up doing that with helium because I felt it would fit the calm, ladylike nature I imagined for her. Helium was discovered by Frenchman Pierre Janssen, I think I'm pronouncing that right, in 1868, so I referenced some summer clothing in France in the late 1800s for her outfit. In addition, helium gets its name from the Greek sun god Helios because it was first discovered around the sun, so I gave her a few sun motifs. Helium is a colorless element, so I made the palettes grays and desaturated blues. Except for on the sunshine motifs where I added a little splash of orange for some extra color, just to add some visual interest. I think she ended up looking really great. Probably my favorite of the 3 characters I'm doing for this video. She was really different from what I imagined when I thought of helium, but I think the final result ended up being really pretty and elegant, and I honestly liked the fact that it was a lot different from what I expected. Last up for this video is lithium. Lithium is an alkali metal, but even with that, it is soft enough to be cut with a knife. To try to show this, I decided to make her look soft and fluffy in places like her hair, and I also made her softer and chubby in her body. Lithium is also commonly used as mood stabilizers and antidepressants, so I decided to make her a therapist. It was honestly really hard to try to convey therapist. In a lot of pictures I looked up, therapists just dressed like normal everyday people, but that wouldn't convey what I wanted. However, if I put her in a full-on doctor's coat and scrubs, she'd look just like a basic doctor. So I tried to kind of meet in the middle by giving her a doctor's coat, but having her wear more everyday person clothes underneath that. I also wanted her to have a sweet, comforting look. Lithium is a silvery white color, so I kept this in her color palette. I'm finding a theme throughout the colors though in this episode, so if this keeps up, I might have to get a little more creative with the designs and add some splashes of color. Lithium is also super lustrous, so I tried to make her extra shiny in places like her hair. In addition, lithium is also very corrosive, so I put a couple of burn marks on her, maybe from accidents, though they kind of look more like birthmarks all over her, which is okay, I guess. I didn't use this in her design, but just for funsies, I'd like to state the fact that lithium was discovered in 1817 by a Swedish chemist named Johann August Arfwedson. I might have botched that pronunciation, apologies to Sweden. It just felt wrong to include that fact for everyone else, but not for her. Moving on, another thing that lithium is known for is lithium batteries. I couldn't think of anything that a therapist would need batteries for though, so instead I gave her a bracelet with a battery-shaped charm on it to kind of allude to the fact that lithium is used for that as well. I originally was going to have her holding some batteries and use those to represent her atomic number, but since I felt that was out of place, I just put some minus and plus signs on her clipboard. In the background, I put 2 pills behind her, which I actually based off of some lithium antidepressants I googled pictures of, and with that, she was done. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you have any name ideas for these characters, please comment them below. I'd love to hear your ideas. Please consider liking and subscribing to my channel, it helps me out a lot. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one.